as I've mentioned on the YouTube channel, I'm a huge fan of the fighting genre, and most notably, guys, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, and Smash. And I gotta say, I gotta respect a lot of other, fighting games like Tekken and, Soul Calibur. I respect pretty much the fighting genre as a whole because it takes a lot more skill than being just a button mashing type of game, which a lot of people think it's just a button mashing, genre, which is just not true. There's so much skill that goes into it. I've said on a number of occasions that I feel that the fighting game genre is one that takes some of the most skill on consoles, period, in my personal opinion. Well, what I want to talk about is one of those fighting games in particular, that being Street Fighter. And we've talked about the future of Street Fighter and the possibilities that could come with a Street Fighter 6. And I want to talk about why Street Fighter 6 should exist. So let's talk about it. So guys, we started making this series on the YouTube channel, why it should exist. This series, we've been making it kind of one of those series that we come back to quite often on the YouTube channel because, look, guys, there's a number of games out there. There's tons of games and tons of series that I believe need continuations, and one of those being Street Fighter. Street Fighter, guys, this is a game that over time has just grown and grown in popularity and really has not looked back at any point in its history. It's pretty much, I mean, you got to say that it's at least one of the big three as far as the biggest, fighting games out there. I would say that it's certainly probably second to Smash. I mean, you could even put it even up there, kind of like tied with it. But I would say that Street Fighter 6 is within the big three of fighting games as a whole. And so when you look at the totality of the Street Fighter franchise, I mean, we've got 5 games up to this point. It's been really a pretty long-standing franchise, and it's been a real classic in the fighting genre. And so why having a Street Fighter 6? Not only, guys, would a Street Fighter 6 give you some improved graphics, it would give you some improved maybe further customization for, more and more characters that could be added to the fold, and even a story that could even be more and more fleshed out as they go. And a new Street Fighter game coming out on the next generation of consoles, like I said, is going to basically be able to meet all of those needs for pretty much everyone. If you want some improved graphics, you want some more customization, you want new characters, a better story, a Street Fighter 6 could do that potentially. Now, when are we going to see a Street Fighter 6? Well, we don't really know yet, guys. There's a possibility that's going to get announced this year. Maybe it'll get announced next year. I would assume that there is going to be a continuation of Street Fighter because this is a franchise that, like I said, is growing in popularity every single year, and it just so happens that it's selling more and more copies pretty much every game that comes out. And so Street Fighter 6, because of what it means for the fighting genre, I mean, gaming as a whole, you could say, but really the fighting genre in video games, it is such a prized, possession of the fighting genre. One of those games that pretty much every fan of fighting games plays or buys. I mean, you at least rent it and play it and see what it's all about. But you think about games like Mortal Kombat, they're on the 11th edition of that franchise, and there's 11 games there, and they're coming out, and it seems like they keep on going up as well, becoming more and more popular and better and better as the series goes. Well, Street Fighter is another one that seems to be doing the same kind of thing, where it's just getting better and better as they go, at least in my personal opinion. Now, a Street Fighter 6, a lot of people may say, look, we don't need Street Fighter 6 because Street Fighter 5 is awesome. And I totally get that. I understand that point. But look, if you want to continue moving forward as a franchise and as a fan base, if you want to see your game continue to grow, a lot of times you need continuations, unless you're like a League of Legends that's already just such a huge juggernaut that it doesn't need League of Legends 2. They just kind of continue updating League of Legends 1. And so, Riot Games has been very vocal about not making another League of Legends. Also, the business model is different with both these games. Obviously, one is a pay, you got to pay to play, and then the other is a free to play, which is a bunch of microtransactions in it, that being League of Legends. So what I'm getting at here, guys, is if you want to see, you know, the following grow, the fan base grow, and see, you know, the next step for the franchise. I mean, they've made 5 games up to this point, so why not continue the legacy that they started? I look at games, you know, one of my favorite games of all time, StarCraft, has not had a StarCraft 3 made, and it's been, you know, going on 10 years now of StarCraft 2. And not that I don't love StarCraft 2, I think it's one of the greatest games ever made, in my opinion, the greatest real-time strategy, in my opinion. But what I will say about it is this. If you want to see the fan base continue growing, because we've seen growth in StarCraft has slowed, even though there's a free-to-play, you know, you can play it free now, which is awesome, and that's grown, you know, the fan base. But all in all, a continuation would expand upon the lore, the story. It would create more characters, more, in StarCraft's instance, you could create more races. You could create all kinds of different neat additions that you didn't think were possible. And look, if Street Fighter 6 ends up not being that great of a game, you can always go back to Street Fighter 5 or one of the other editions of the franchise. I mean, we look at games like StarCraft, where I think StarCraft 2 is significantly better than StarCraft 1. Lots of people have stayed on StarCraft 1. They may have tried StarCraft 2, but they ended up going back. Same thing with Call of Duty. There's a ton of Call of Duty games. Some people have their preferences, and so some people go back to Modern Warfare 2 or to Black Ops 2 instead of playing, you know, after playing a little bit of the newer games. So there's nothing wrong with that, but having a legacy that continues, that tries to build upon what they've kind of started, I just think that Street Fighter 6 could definitely do well in the next generation of consoles. And look, it could continue that legacy. I mean, Street Fighter has become a great competitive game to watch as well. And that's the other part of it, is that you could see the esports side of Street Fighter continue to grow and kind of see something that, you know, it turns out to be something quite special, potentially, right? Not that Street Fighter 6 is going, you know, it has to happen, but I think that it deserves to exist. It should exist at some point or another in gaming. And like I said, we have no idea when Street Fighter 6 will come out. We don't even know if it is coming out. We're just going based on speculation, guys, because of how well Street Fighter 5 did as far as sales are concerned, critical reception, and things of that nature. You kind of look at all those things, and it just makes sense to continue this, because I want to see the continuation of the story. I want to see the lore continue, because I'll tell you this, with Mortal Kombat, when I started playing Mortal Kombat, I absolutely loved it, but I loved it not just because of the multiplayer experience, which is what keeps you coming back, but also the story itself, understanding the story and seeing where they're kind of going and seeing those continuations as the series progresses. And it's become my favorite fighting game at this point. And Street Fighter is one of those that's even more popular than Mortal Kombat. So why wouldn't they want to continue building on what they're doing? So, a Street Fighter 6, guys, I believe it will exist at some point or another. I believe it definitely should, with the next generation of consoles coming out, that being the Xbox Series X and the PS5. Why not? Why not? I mean, you know, a lot of people say, why do we need it? Well, why not have it, you know, as another game in the franchise? Sure, you don't want something that is going to be pretty much a copy and paste of the previous editions of the franchise, but you just want something that can continue diving you into the lore and the story, as well as like the multiplayer experiences of Street Fighter in this instance. So, with that being said, guys, I want to hear from all of you. Do you think that Street Fighter 6 should exist? And if it should, let me know in the comment section below what you guys want to see in Street Fighter 6. And at some point or another, I'm sure we're going to hear more information about Street Fighter 6 in probably the coming months or the coming years. And I'll be sure to keep you all up to speed as further information comes out. But let me know what you guys think. And for more Street Fighter 6 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.